Tessa paced the small quarters, now dressed in the gray jumpsuit Devon had provided. Mind raced through scenarios, each more troubling than the last. In her experience, unexpected kindness often concealed deeper motives. The debt collar felt heavier around her neck, its weight a constant reminder of her predicament. When the door finally slid open, she positioned herself against the far wall, arms crossed defensively. Devon entered, carrying a small crate of supplies. His eyes found hers immediately, noting her stance. "You haven't eaten," he observed, glancing at the untouched conservator. "Not hungry," Tessa replied, though her stomach betrayed her with a quiet growl. "What do you want from me?" Devon set the crate down and began unpacking its contents. Real fruit, not synthetic. Sealed packages of protein bars, a medical kit, and a data tablet. "Right now, nothing. Tomorrow, we'll talk." "People don't spend 1,000 credits for nothing," she countered, her voice sharp with suspicion. Devon paused, his hands stilling over the supplies. "No, they don't." He straightened and faced her directly. "I need a navigator, one who knows the Cyrus Passage." Tessa's eyes widened slightly. The Cyrus Passage was notoriously dangerous and narrow corridor through a debris field left by a stellar collision centuries ago. Few pilots attempted it, and even fewer navigation specialists could plot a reliable course through its shifting hazards. "How did you know I've navigated Cyrus?" she asked, her curiosity momentarily overriding her caution. "Your ship's registry?" The Horizon Runner made 3 documented passages before it was. He hesitated before it was seized. Pain flashed across Tessa's face at the mention of her lost vessel. "So this is a job interview? An expensive one?" Devon's mouth twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. "Consider it an investment." He moved to the door that led to a small sleeping alcove. "That's yours. I'll take the main room. The door locks from your side." Tessa stared at him, trying to read beyond his controlled expression. "Why not just hire me through official channels once my contract is settled? Because by then, you'd be leased to a corporate transport fleet for the duration." He reached into his pocket and placed a small object on the table, a navigation command key. Scratched and worn from years of use. "Get some rest. We have planning to do tomorrow." After he had stretched out on the room's single couch and closed his eyes, Tessa cautiously approached the table. The command key was military grade. Older model, but still valuable. She picked it up, feeling its weight in her palm. Before retreating to the sleeping alcove and securing the door, for the first time since her brother's death, she slept without fear of what the next day would bring. Morning on Meridian Station was an artificial concept lights gradually increasing to simulate dawn. Recycled air pumped through with a slightly different composition to signal the new cycle. Devon was already awake, reviewing data on a holographic display, when Tessa emerged from the alcove. "Your debt total," he said without preamble, gesturing to the floating numbers. 27,800 credits. Plus 5,000 in processing fees. Tessa's throat tightened. The processing fees weren't part of the original debt. "They rarely are," Devon replied, his voice revealing a hint of bitterness. "The system is designed to keep people like you bound to it." "People like me? Those without political connections or corporate protection?" He dismissed the hologram with a wave. "I can cover this week's contract fee, maybe next week's. Not the full amount." Tessa approached the display terminal and pulled up her own contract details, scanning the terms. "There's a clause here, debt reduction for specialized service." She looked at Devon sharply. "If I navigate through Ceres for you, it could reduce my total by 8,000 credits. If approved by the contract holder," Devon confirmed. "Which, for this week, is me." Hope flickered in Tessa's chest, quickly tempered by reality. "But after your contract period ends, I'll be auctioned again. Whoever buys my contract next week won't care about debt reduction." Devon's expression darkened. "No, they won't. Contract brokers profit from keeping people indebted." He stood and moved to a small panel in the wall, pressing his palm against it. A hidden compartment slid open, revealing a worn military duffel bag. "I have a proposal," he said, pulling out a folded star chart. "One that could clear your debt. Entirely. Tessa's pulse quickened. I'm listening. I need to reach the Keldaris outpost through the Saru's passage within 15 days. Official routes would take 28. I have a ship, but no navigator capable of plotting the course. He unfolded the chart on the table. Help me get there, and I'll pay off your entire debt. Tessa studied the chart, her navigator's mind, already calculating trajectories through the dangerous corridor. Why Keldaris? It's barely more than a refueling station. Devon's eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw something beyond his controlled exterior and intensity that spoke of personal stakes far beyond a simple transport job. Because, he said quietly, that's where they're holding my daughter. The gleaming halls of Meridian Station were designed to hide ugly truths beneath polished surfaces. Here, on the outer rim of colonized space, laws bent easily, and people's lives became commodities when they couldn't pay their debts. Tessa Vega stood behind the translucent barrier, her amber eyes fixed straight ahead, refusing to acknowledge the crowd gathering in the viewing gallery. Her dark hair was pulled back severely, highlighting her sharp cheekbones and the defiant set of her jaw. At 32, she had navigated some of the most treacherous routes in the sector, but never imagined ending up here on an auction block with a debt. Collar locked around her neck. The auction master's voice echoed through the chamber. 17. Female, human, healthy. Navigation specialist with verified credentials. Contract term: 10 months or until debt satisfaction. Opening bid: 800 credits per week. Tessa's stomach twisted. 10 months of being rented like equipment. 10 months of serving whoever paid the most. Her brother Jace's medical debts had transferred to her after his death, standard procedure under Meridian's colonial charter. The corporation had seized her ship, the only home she'd known for years. But it wasn't enough to cover what was owed. In the back of the auction gallery, Devon Mercer leaned against the wall, his expression carefully neutral as he surveyed the proceedings. At 40, his face carried the weathered look of someone who had seen too much of the universe's darker corners. A jagged scar ran from his temple to his jaw, a souvenir from his military days, when he'd piloted combat vessels during the border conflicts. He hadn't planned to be here today. He'd come to Meridian for refueling and supplies, intending to be gone within 48 hours. But something about Lot 17 caught his attention, not the way it had for the others in the room. He recognized the look in her eyes, pride, mixed with fury, determination beneath desperation. The bidding started, rapid and impersonal. Devon watched as 3 regular contract brokers who would sublease her services at a profit drove the price higher, at $5,900, $950 per week. Her value determined by strangers who saw only what they could extract from her. $1,000, Devon said, his voice cutting through the room. The auction master paused, looking toward the back wall. Bidder 23 offers 1,000 credits weekly. Do I hear 150? One of the brokers, a heavy-set man with augmented vision implants, turned to assess Devon. After a moment, he shook his head slightly and stepped back. 1,000 once, twice. Contract assigned to bidder 23 for 7 days, renewable at current rate. Devon approached the transaction terminal, pressed his thumb to the scanner, and transferred the credits from his account. His balance dropped precipitously, but he kept his face impassive. 7 days, that's all he could afford for now. The barrier separating Tessa from the auction floor dissolved. An attendant removed her restraints but left the debt collar in place, a constant, a reminder of her status, and a tracker that would signal if she attempted to leave the station. "Follow me," Devon said, not meeting her eyes. Tessa walked 3 paces behind him, the customary distance for contractees. She studied his broad shoulders, the way he moved with military precision, the worn edge of his jacket. Not a broker, not a corporate representative, something else. They entered the residential section of the station, passing through security checkpoints that scanned Devon's credentials and Tessa's collar. He stopped at a modest quarters unit, pressed his hand to the entry panel, and stepped inside. "These are private quarters," Tessa observed cautiously. "Yes," Devon replied, moving to a storage unit and retrieving a sealed package. "Here." Tessa caught the package reflexively. Inside was a simple, gray jumpsuit, clean, practical, and notably lacking the revealing cutouts of the standard contractee uniform she currently wore. "Change if you want," he said, indicating a small privacy alcove. "There's food in the conservator. I'll be back in an hour." Tessa's brow furrowed. "You're leaving?" "Yes." "But you paid for time," Devin interrupted. "I paid for time. It's bedest. Yours to use as you choose." Before she could respond, he was gone, the door sealing behind him. Tessa stood alone in the quiet quarters, clutching the jumpsuit, trying to understand what had just happened, and wondering what game this stranger was playing because, in her experience, no one spent 1,000 credits without expecting something significant in return. The revelation hung in the air between them. Tessa examined Devin's face, searching for deception but finding only raw determination. "Your daughter," she repeated carefully. "Who's holding her?" "Colonial Security Forces," Devin replied, his voice tight. "She was on a research vessel that strayed into restricted space. The crew was detained for alleged espionage." Tessa moved to the chart, tracing the path to Keldaris with her finger. "And you think you can just walk into a CSF detention facility and take her?" "No," he admitted. "But I have contacts there, people who owe me favors from my military days. They can get her out. If I arrive before her transfer to the central processing station on Helios Prime." Tessa's mind raced, calculating risks and possibilities. Even with the best navigation, Cyrus is treacherous. "What kind of ship do you have?" "Modified Cormorant-class transport. Military spec engines, reinforced hull. Not pretty, but fast and durable." Tessa almost laughed. "A cormorant." "Those were decommissioned 10 years ago. 9, Devin corrected. "Oh. And this one has some upgrades." She shook her head, but couldn't deny the spark of excitement at the challenge. It had been too long since she had charted a difficult course, felt the satisfaction of guiding a vessel through impossible odds. "If we succeed," she said slowly, "and you pay my debt, what then?" Devin's expression remained neutral. "Then you're free to go wherever you want." Before Tessa could respond, the door chime sounded. Devin tensed, motioning for her to stay back as he checked the security feed. His jaw tightened at what he saw. "Contract enforcement," he muttered, quickly folding the star chart and returning it to his hidden compartment. "Say nothing about Cyrus or Keldaris." The door slid open to reveal a thin man in a gray uniform, flanked by 2 security drones. His eyes moved from Devin to Tessa, lingering on her debt collar. "Routine inspection," he announced, though his tone suggested otherwise. "Contract IDSC 7729 has been flagged for a status review." Devin kept his expression neutral. "On what grounds?" The officer consulted his tablet. "Contractee's skills have been reassessed. She's been identified as a class and navigation specialist with military-grade training." His cold eyes fixed on Tessa. "Such specialists command a premium rate. Your current contract fee is significantly undervalued." Tessa felt her heart sink. Someone had recognized her capabilities, perhaps from the auction records, perhaps from her ship's history, and now the system was adjusting to extract maximum value. "I've paid the agreed rate," Devin stated firmly. For the classification at time of auction, the officer countered. Section 23.7 of the contract code allows for adjustment when special skills are identified. He handed Devin a notification. "Tablet, contract fee is now adjusted to 2,000 credits weekly, effective immediately. Difference for current week due within 24 hours. Devon's face remained impassive as he accepted the tablet, but Tessa could see the tension in his shoulders. Another 1,000 credits would drain whatever resources he had been counting on for their escape plan. Additionally, the officer continued, his thin lips curving into what might have been a smile. "The contractee's total debt has been recalculated to include training and certification value." Tessa stepped forward. "What? You can't just contractee will remain silent." The officer cut her off sharply. "Your debt now stands at 43,500 credits. Turned back to Devin. "Will you be maintaining the contract?" At the adjusted rate, Devin's fingers tightened around the tablet, but his voice remained steady. "I will." After the officer departed, Tessa couldn't contain her fury. "They can't do this. They're just making up numbers now." "They can, and they did," Devin replied grimly. The system is designed to keep valuable assets locked in service. He set the tablet down and turned to her. But they've made a mistake. What do you mean? Devon's eyes met hers, a dangerous determination evident in them. They've shown their hand. They value your skills enough to risk breaking their own rules. He moved to the hidden compartment and retrieved a small device Tessa didn't recognize. And now we know exactly how much you're worth to them. How does that help us? Tessa asked, frustration evident in her voice. Devon activated the device, which projected a small holographic display of Meridian Station's security protocols. Because now we know what they'll do to keep you. We can use that. For the first time since meeting him, Tessa saw Devon smile a sharp, predatory expression that reminded her he had once been a military man, trained to identify and exploit enemy weaknesses. The plan has changed, he said quietly. We're not just escaping your debt anymore, he pointed to a section of the station schematic. We're going to bring down the entire contract system. The following days passed in a blur of careful planning and preparation. Devon's quarters became their war room, with encrypted schematics and timetables projected on every available surface. Tessa's navigation skills proved valuable beyond plotting. Courses through space, she had an intuitive understanding of systems and patterns that helped identify weaknesses in Meridian Station's security protocols. The contract records are stored in a secure server farm on level 8, Tessa explained, highlighting a section of the station schematic. But they're backed up to the central administration hub every 12 hours. Devon studied the rotating display. Physical access is impossible without setting off every alarm on the station. We don't need physical access, Tessa replied, a hint of smugness in her voice. She pulled up a complex network diagram. See these maintenance access points? There. Designed for diagnostic systems to monitor the environmental controls, but they connect to the same network backbone as the contract servers. Devon raised an eyebrow. I thought you were just a navigator. My brother was a systems engineer before he got sick, she said quietly. He taught me a few things. The mention of her brother brought a moment of silence. Devon didn't press, but his expression softened slightly. Tomorrow's the deadline, he reminded her. If I don't pay the additional 1,000 credits, your contract goes back to auction. Tessa nodded grimly. And I'll be assigned to the highest bidder, probably Nexus Transport. Given how eager they are for qualified navigators, which means we move tonight. Devon checked the charge on a small device that resembled a standard maintenance tool, but had been carefully modified. The night cycle begins in 3 hours. Security rotations change at 0200. That gives us a 20-minute window. And if we fail, Tessa asked, voicing the question that had been hanging between them. Devon's eyes met hers. I face imprisonment for contract fraud and theft of station property. He nodded toward her debt collar. And you, ... end up with an even larger debt. In a security risk designation, she finished. Probably shipped to a mining operation on one of the outer colonies. The stark reality of their situation settled around them. We're risking everything on a plan that had too many variables. Too many potential points of failure. Devon moved to the hidden compartment and retrieved something Tessa hadn't seen. Before a small metal case containing an identification chip and what appeared to be official documentation. If things go wrong, he said, placing the case in her hands, get to docking bay 17. There's a maintenance worker named Horhan who owes me his life. Give him this. He'll get you on a transport heading for the Tau sector. Tessa opened the case, examining the contents. These are military-grade credentials. Yes, Devon replied. Simply, why would you give me your escape route? She asked, confusion evident in her voice. Devon's expression remained unreadable. Because my daughter doesn't deserve to pay for my failure, he closed the case in Tessa's hands. Do you? The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. In the days they'd spent planning, she'd begun to see beyond the hardened exterior he presented glimpses of the man he'd been before, whatever tragedy had shaped him. She wondered what had happened to separate him from his daughter, what circumstances had driven him to such desperate measures. We're not going to fail, she said with a conviction that surprised even her, as night cycle approached. They made final preparations. Tessa reprogrammed her debt caller's tracking signal using a maintenance tool Devon had acquired through unnamed sources. It wouldn't disable the device that would trigger immediate alarms, but it would create a 30-minute loop of her remaining in the quarters while they moved through the station. Devon changed into maintenance coveralls and handed Tessa a similar set. Once we're in the service corridors, we'll have limited communication. If we get separated, we stick to the plan, Tessa finished. I access the system while you secure our exit route. He nodded once, then hesitated before adding, "Whatever happens, Tessa, you've earned your freedom. Remember that." The unexpected words lingered between them as they made final checks of their equipment. When the station lights dimmed to signal, night cycle, exchanged one last look, a silent acknowledgement of all that was at stake before slipping into the corridor and toward an uncertain future. The service tunnels of Meridian Station were a labyrinth of narrow passages, dimly lit and humming with the station's life support systems. Tessa moved confidently, having memorized the maintenance routes during their planning. Devon followed, close behind, his military training evident in his silent movement and constant vigilance. They reached the access junction that would lead them to the network terminal. Tessa knelt beside the panel, connecting her modified diagnostic tool to the interface. Devon positioned himself at the junction, keeping watch on both approaches. "Security patrol in Section 7, he whispered, checking the scanner they'd calibrated to the station's security frequencies. 6 minutes out. Tessa nodded, her fingers flying across the interface. I need 5. The screen before her flickered as she bypassed the first level of security protocols. I'm in the maintenance subsystem, redirecting to the contract database now. Devon's scanner beeped softly. Patrol's changing course, heading our way. 2 more minutes, Tessa replied, her voice tight with concentration. The interface glowed, green as she accessed the contract records. I found it the master database. Every contract on the station, including mine. She quickly located her file and the algorithm that controlled debt calculation. With precise keystrokes, she inserted a subtle modification, not erasing her debt outright, which would trigger alarms, but creating a loop in the calculation formula. That would continuously reduce any balance by 99.7% every processing cycle. Done, she announced, disconnecting her tool. In 12 hours, when the system runs its daily calculations, every contract on this station will effectively zero out. Devon's eyes widened slightly. All of them? Not just yours? The algorithm applies to the entire database, Tessa confirmed, a fierce satisfaction in her voice. Thousands of people will be free. Before Devon could respond, his scanner emitted a shrill tone. Security override in progress. They've detected the system access. That's impossible, Tessa hissed. I masked our entry point. Someone must have been monitoring the system manually. Devon checked the scanner again, his expression grim. We have 2 minutes before this section locks down. They moved swiftly through the service tunnel, abandoning stealth for speed. As they approached the junction that would lead them to the docking bay, emergency lights began to pulse, bathing the corridor in crimson. Attention all personnel, an automated voice announced. Security breach detected, initiating station-wide lockdown. Devon pulled Tessa into a recessed maintenance alcove as heavy footsteps echoed ahead. Change of plans, he whispered. We need to split up. No, Tessa protested. We stick together. We'll be looking for 2 people, Devon countered. The tracking loop on your collar will fail any minute. Need to get to docking bay 17 now while I create a diversion. Tessa gripped his arm. What about your daughter, Calderis? Something flickered across Devon's face, a moment of raw emotion before his features settled back into determined resolve. Horhan has instructions. If I don't make it, he'll contact my people on Keldaris. A series of heavy security doors began, closing throughout the station, the mechanical sounds echoing through the service tunnels. Go, Devon urged, pressing a small object into her hand, the navigation command key he had shown her on their first day. This will get you past the bay security. Tell Horhan the Phoenix rises at dawn. He'll know what to do. Before Tessa could argue further, Devon stepped out of the alcove and moved in the opposite direction, deliberately making enough noise to attract attention. Within seconds, shouts echoed down the corridor as security personnel changed course to pursue him. Tessa hesitated only briefly before racing toward docking bay 17, the command key clutched tightly in her hand. Her det collar beeped once, signaling that the tracking loop had failed, but she didn't slow down. The sound of station-wide alarms followed her through the service tunnels. When she reached the maintenance access point for the docking bay, she found the promised contact Jorhan, an older man with sharp eyes and a perpetual scowl. He examined the command key and nodded once when she repeated Devon's phrase. "This way," he said gruffly, leading her through the bay toward a small, unmarked vessel docked in a maintenance berth. "Once you're aboard, initiate the launch sequence. Coordinates are already programmed." "What about Devon?" Tessa asked, even as she followed him into the ship. Jorhan's expression softened slightly. "Mercer has 9 lives. Always has." He sealed the airlock behind her. "Now go." The ship's systems came online at her touch, recognizing the command key. As she initiated launch procedures, the vessel's registration details appeared on the main console. Horizon Runner. Tessa froze, staring at the name in disbelief. It was her ship, the one that had been seized when her brother's debts transferred to her. Somehow Devon had found it and prepared it for this moment. A message appeared on the communications display. Course set for Keldara's outpost. Nav systems calibrated for Saru's passage. Credentials and access codes in the secure compartment beneath the pilot's chair. Tessa's hands trembled as she guided the ship out of the docking bay, evading the station's security vessels through a series of precise maneuvers. As Meridian Station fell behind, she opened the secure compartment and found not only the promised credentials, but a data crystal containing a personal message. Devon's face appeared on the small screen, his expression more open than she had. "Ever seen it? If you're seeing this, then our plan worked at least partly. The truth is, there is no daughter on Keldaris. There's something else, evidence of contract system corruption that reaches to the highest levels of colonial administration. The coordinates will take you to people who can use it to bring down the entire system." Paused, a hint of a genuine smile crossing his features. "You're free now, Tessa. Your ship is yours again. The navigation skills that made you valuable to them will make you invaluable to the Resistance. Whether you choose that path or chart your own course is up to you." The message ended, leaving Tessa staring at the stars beyond the view screen. Behind her, Meridian Station grew smaller, its gleaming surfaces no longer hiding the ugly truths she had escaped. Ahead lay Keldaris and the opportunity to help others break free from the same chains. Her hands moved confidently across the familiar controls of her ship, plotting a course through the Saru's passage. For the first time since her brother's death, Tessa felt something beyond survival instinct driving her forward, a purpose that had been kindled by a stranger who had seen her value when the rest of the universe saw only a debt to be paid. She engaged the engines, accelerating toward the stars and whatever future awaited beyond them. The det collar, now deactivated, sat on the console beside her, reminder of what she had escaped and what she would help others escape in the days to come. As the Horizon Runner leaped into faster-than-light travel, Tessa whispered a silent promise to the man who had sacrificed his freedom for hers. Someday she would return the favor. Until then, she would carry forward the mission he had entrusted to her, breaking chains, one star system at a time.